Hello and welcome to the Medusa Yarn and Fiber YouTube channel. I'm your host, Niki, and this is a channel all about my crafting endeavors. Today's episode is about cross stitch, and I have a finished object to show you, finally. So grab a beverage, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
Wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine. Wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine. Wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine. Wanna move my feet, wanna drink my wine.
Well, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today. It is Wednesday, the day that I'm filming this is Wednesday, July 6th, and it is really hot here in East Tennessee. For those of you who might be new viewers, I am Canadian, originally born and raised in Manitoba, just outside of Winnipeg, but I now live in East Tennessee in Knoxville. And so I've been in the US for 12 years. 2008 I moved here. 14 years? Oh my goodness. Yeah, am I doing the math right? And I still can't get used to this heat in the summertime. But I'm not complaining. Well, I guess I am. But I do love living here most of the time. So anyways, it's really hot. So it's a good day to be filming indoors, filming a Flosstube. So if you'd like to support the channel, if you like what you see here or you like any of my other videos, please be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe, comment, tell your friends about me if they are interested in any of the crafts that I do, and spread the word about my channel. It would help me out a lot. Thank you very much. That's my PSA for the day. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do before I show you my finished object in cross stitch is show an embroidered gift that we got from my mother at Christmas, and I forgot to show it to you the last few times I've uploaded a video. So my mother now lives in British Columbia, so for those of you who are familiar with Canadian geography, that's at the west coast of Canada. And so she comes down to visit as much as she can. My sister also lives up in British Columbia. And she was down for a couple of months at Christmas time, and she embroidered these beautiful pillowcases for my children. I hope that's not too blurry. Is it upside down? Oh. Oh my goodness. Okay. There, that's better. It says, "Love grows here," with a vase with flowers on either side. And it's gorgeous. I love it. I've got a lot of embroidered pillowcases that she's done for me over the years, or that my grandmother did years and years ago. It's very much a part of, like, we always had hand embroidered pillowcases growing up. And so when she saw that my children didn't have any, because embroidery isn't quite my thing, I prefer cross-stitching or sewing, she did this for Oscar and Amadea, my son and my daughter. So I thought, man, I should show it, since it's very much part of needlework, or the needle arts, which we all know and love. So thank you very much, Dagmar, if you watch. I don't think she watches, but if you are, thank you again for the beautiful embroidered pillowcases. Okay, my first finished object this year. Drum roll, please, and I hope I might have to put up a piece of paper behind it, is a Jeannie McGowan from the Blue Flower, the Tudor Bee. The colors aren't coming up quite right. Is it because I'm holding it up? Let's see. Let me try. No, that's not going to work. Here, I've got some white tissue paper. I can try that. I never think these things through before filming. All right, the Tudor Bee by Jeannie McGowan. I love it. I can't tell if it's... I'm trying a new setting on my phone. I have it in cinematic. I might have to rethink that. But anyway, Tutor Bee, gorgeous little pattern. I'll show you what it's supposed to look like in case it's not showing up properly. There we go. And it is a fairly small project, as you can see, only 100 by 83 stitches. And this one is finished as a pillow. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish mine as a pillow. I think I might try framing it myself. But I did it on 32 count cashel, or Belfast, pardon me, linen that I just tea dyed. I had bought it just from a big box store. I think Hobby Lobby maybe is the only big box store that sells linen, not just Ada, at least around here. And then I did it with the called for NPS silks. So this was my first introduction to silk, and boy, do I love it. I think I might frame it because between the two dogs, the cat, my daughter who likes to squirrel things away, and just general like chaotic household, I don't think finishing it up into a pillow is a very good idea. My dogs, especially our new puppy Bree, she doesn't know the difference between a dog toy and anything else right now. And my sewing room, my craft room, is in an unfinished basement and is not very pretty. All of my work area down there for dyeing and all of my administrative work for my business is all down there, and it's not a nice space to sit and relax in. Like, I just go down there to work. So having anything decorative like that, I would bring it upstairs, and some way, somehow, it's gonna get chewed up or lost or tucked away because my daughter's like a little crow. She sees something she likes, she steals it and hides it, and then forgets that she ever had it. She's only 6, so we have to cut her a little bit of slack. So I think I'm gonna give it a nice little framing and like just have it sort of as a nice little piece somewhere in the hallway. I'll wait and see how it goes. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I need to do more by Janine McGowan. I watch her Flosstube and I really, really enjoy it. She seems like a really, I don't know, down to earth, like she knows who she is kind of a woman. She'd be a good woman to be friends with, I'm sure. Excellent cross-stitch designer, and yeah, I highly recommend it if you haven't done it. I've seen a lot of people have it in their stash or their pattern stash. See, you know, a lot of cross-stitchers talk about how there's two crafts here, right? There's the stashing of the patterns, and then there's cross-stitching. I'm not like that. I only buy patterns I plan to cross-stitch soon. So I don't have a big stash of patterns that I may or may not ever stitch. The only exception for that is maybe a charity one that I want to make sure I buy to support, which I'll show a couple of examples. But if I buy it, I have full plans on stitching it and stitching it soon, usually. So I've seen a lot of people with this in their pattern haul, and I've seen a few people stitch it. If you have it, stitch it. It's really, really nice. One thing I did, which, you know, is all personal preference, is I did 1/2 on, let me double check the count. I have 32 count Belfast, yeah. So I did 1/2, so it's a pretty thin coverage, but I like that, which meant that I have a lot of silk left over to use in other projects. Just gorgeous. I absolutely loved it. So that's my first finished object, and hopefully by my next video it'll be an FFO, framed very nicely for you. Well, for me. Okay, so I'm going to show you just a handful of whips that I have, because I have a lot of new starts to show you. So I'm only going to show you the whips, the works in progress that I've touched and stitched on since my last Flosstube video, which might have been April. I've made a knitting and quilting video since then, but I don't think I've made a floss tube since April. So it's been a while, which hence all the new starts. And so I haven't put a whole lot of stitching into anything else, but I will show you what I have worked on. So in no particular order, I've worked on my Hands Across the Sea Marion Horsborough, which was my very first reproduction sampler. I'm sitting in front of a window, so I'm not too sure how well the lighting is coming. With the called for DMC, this was before I discovered silks, and a nice small sampler on 18 count Aida. And I think my plan is to really get going and finish this. The last time I showed you, I hadn't done, I think, just a little bit over here. So I've only put in maybe about 500 or 600 stitches. But I think my plan is to get it done soon so that I can dye the project. I know. It should be fine. Excuse me. Take a drink of my Diet Coke. Yeah, my plan is to dye it when it's done, just with a light rinse with some tea, just to grunge up the Aida a little bit. I hadn't quite discovered the world of hand-dyed fabric, especially how much better a reproduction sampler looks on something that looks aged. So when I started this, I hadn't quite, I mean, I knew about it, but I wasn't sure if I was going to start, spending the extra cash on that. And of course now I will. But so I think when I'm done, I'm going to rinse it with some tea over the entire project. It's such an adorable little sampler. I really, really enjoy any Hands Across the Sea samplers. All right, so not a whole lot of stitching on that one. And this is just Aida that I picked up and this is what it will eventually look like. Isn't that pretty? Yeah, this is what it'll eventually look like. All right, another whip that got a little bit of work on it is my Fruits of Plenty stitch along with Modern Folk Embroidery. The last time I showed it, I had just finished the first 3 months, and it was just starting April, so January, February, March, April. And so I'm behind again. I was caught up exactly a year behind. Now I'm more than a year behind. I haven't yet finished April, and that's because this was a ton of stitching. Now this is Modern Folk Embroidery, the Fruits of Plenty Sal, so that's what it's going to look like from 2021. That's the finished. And I cannot tell you, this in here is so much stitching. This month, April, almost feels like full coverage. There's so many stitches in this one. May, the middle one, I've looked ahead at it and it'll be much faster, but I kind of got burned out on it in April after I did all that. I was just like I set it aside and I was like, I can't look at it for a while. I love it, but I am doing it 1/1 on 28 count cashel linen, just some undyed white cashel linen that even, I mean, I wanted it to be white linen so that the blue would stand out nicely. And I'm using the 2 blues that Jacob calls for in the pattern. And I love it, love it, love it, but man, I get so easily burned out on this one. But I'll still chip away at it. There's a lot of people still working on it. Oh, what does Chris Cross Stitch call it? Still fresh fruit? I think he might have coined that phrase, or maybe somebody else did. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But the still fresh Fruits of Plenty Sal, the fruit hasn't rotted just yet. Yeah, lots of stitching. I mean, take a look at this. I'll take it out of the plastic. These border ones in here are almost full coverage. So it takes a lot. I love me some modern folk embroidery patterns though. Whew. They are beautiful. I finished one of his last year, the Valcomen one, but I gave that one to my mother for her birthday. Now, the third and only other whip that got any love from me since we last spoke is another Hands Across the Sea, and this is the Anne Webb 1829. That's it there. And again, I apologize if it's not focusing. And here it is. I've gotten quite a bit of work done on this one. In fact, I think I got a page finish, almost 2 pages. No, I did finish the second page. So I've gotten 2 pages done. And a little bit, as you can see, I had to get to that goat, even though he's not like the bottom of that goat. And so this was a page, and then I went down, and then here's another new page. But the pages for this particular pattern are really big, so it doesn't take long to complete a page and then get that sense of accomplishment. And I'm doing this 40 count Newcastle cream. And this is an old cream. So it's a true cream. I was having a discussion about Newcastle linen with Amy from, what's it called? It's a local needle store in Johnson City. I finally went out there a couple weeks ago. Cross Stitch and Crafts, that's what it's called. And one of the employees there, Amy, I spent like the entire day there. It was so awesome. Anyway, and I'll tell you what I was doing in just a second. But she and I were talking about this particular fabric, and she had some in the store, and it was so peachy compared to this. And I had bought this from Silk Road Needle Arts in Florida back when we were on spring break on Treasure Island, and it was old inventory. So it's the old cream from a few years ago, which is a true cream. There's no pink in it whatsoever, or peach at all. And the cream that they now produce is very peachy in our eyes compared to the old cream. Anyway, I digress. Beautiful soie d'Alger 1/2 40 count, but the soie d'Alger silks are amazing. And I like this because of the pinks and the blues and the creams and the goats, of course. And I was watching Flosstube, and I finally saw another Flosstuber who is stitching this one. And that's, I think you pronounce her name Rika from Stitch and Stash. She just happened to pop up on my feed, and she showed this one. I was like, oh yay, finally another Flosstuber that I can see, or that I have seen doing this one, because I felt like, wow, why aren't more people doing this amazing sampler? So if you know anybody else, or if you yourself are doing the Anne Webb, please let me know. I'd love, because even the hashtag on Instagram doesn't have very many posts, just 2 or 3 of us. I was just surprised, because it's a pretty amazing sampler. But it looks different from the others, right? So maybe if you like that traditional mostly red and greens, this one is a little bit different in its color palette. Love it. Okay, so that's it for my current whips that are getting love. Now for all of my new starts. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new starts. And that's a lot for me, especially since I decided, that I wasn't going to be that person with more than maybe 10 or 12 whips. because I just feel like, oh my gosh, I just have to get it done. I want my wall covered in samplers and other beautiful patterns, and the only way to do it is to finish it, right? And then move on to the next one. Well, that didn't last for very long. Now, the first one I'm going to show you is something that I started, but I have to stop and restart, but I'm still going to show you. And it's housed in a project bag that I made. And I'm just looking. I've been going on a project bag making mission. And this was one of my early ones, and I love it, but I just realized I think the fabric's upside down on the outside. I'll show you the project bag first. It's a vinyl front with those adorable deer, does, definitely does, inside. And I think it's a Moda fabric, maybe a Riley Blake, I don't remember anymore, with this beautiful mustardy on the outside. But I'm looking and the flowers are upside down. It's a work in progress, right? It's definitely a work in progress. I mean, I've been sewing for years and years, and now I'm a quilter. Can I say that? I've made a few quilts, so yeah, now I'm a quilter. But I really want to perfect my bag making skills. So, very cute. Now, the pattern is the Flea Market Flowers by Lori Holt, which I absolutely love, and I couldn't wait to start it. And I started it, and I'm doing it on, I can't remember. I think it was a Charles Craft. No, it was a DMC California linen, I think. I'll put the information here because I didn't write it down. In a higher count. I don't think it's 40. Maybe it's 40. I don't know. Anyway, with the called for DMC. And this is what I've got so far. Gorgeous, but look at this. I have left myself no border. I think at one point I had 2 inches, but I didn't serge it. Or when I say serge, I don't have a serger. I just mean zigzag stitch, but I'm just going to say serge. I hadn't serged the edges right away, and so just getting it, pulling it out, putting it back, pulling it out, putting it back, it started to fray, and the next thing I know, I've lost like 3/4 of an inch in fraying. I mean, this side is still not too bad. I don't know. What would you do? Would you start over with plenty more margin space, or would you keep going and just punish some poor framer who will one day frame this for me? Or maybe I'll have to finish it some other way. Tell me what you would do. I mean, look at over here, it gets even skinnier. So it's been languishing. I have not been working on it, you know, in several, like probably 6 weeks, simply because I was so like, oh man, I can't believe I did this, because I'm terrible for that. I in my mind, if I don't have tape measure with me, I need to get a corner square is what I need to do, specifically with the holes, so you can figure out your border inches, and then just stick a needle in and start. Because in my mind, an inch is always much bigger. Yeah, don't tell my husband. I'm sorry. This is not a family-friendly podcast half the time. Anyway, so in my mind, an inch is often much bigger than what it really is. Or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. I'm terrible with measurements in general. I'll be like, oh, that's about 5 inches. My husband will look at me and he'll be like, are you serious? That's not 5 inches. It's 10 inches. No, never mind. Anyways, so on that lovely note, it's sitting in the corner for now. And I just need to make a decision whether or not I'm just going to start over. I do like the rusticness of this linen. It's like a raw, natural colored linen, which I really like for the flowers. So If I do start over, I'll probably just start over on the other side. And then, I don't know. I'm just going to have to, I don't know what I'm going to do. Tell me what you would do. And, oh, what I really like about this one, too, is when I was at the Mountain Quilt Fest, a Mountain Quilt Fest out in Pigeon Forge, so there was on display there the quilt version of this pattern. I mean, who doesn't love a good Lori Holt pattern? Just so fresh and springy. All right, so clearly between the upside down fabric in the fabric bag, the complete lack of border allowance for any framer, this one is just sitting quietly for a while. All right, another new start is, which one am I going to show you? Oh, this one. Let's do this one. I just started it, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. And you're not going to believe how far I've gotten. All right, first of all, what is it? It is another modern folk embroidery, because that's my jam. And it is an example of one of the ones he released last month for charity. I can't remember her name, Caroline maybe, of Evertote or Off the Grid, something like that. She's got a really good Flosstube. She used to do a post every day, but I don't know if she does that anymore. Carolyn from Evertote in Canada. You all know who it is. The Birds from Bernard's books that he released as a charity support for her husband, who was cycling, doing some sort of road race, I think, raising money for some sort of charity. I knew all of this 6 weeks ago. Why don't I know it now? I'll put all the information on the screen. Because there was he was supposed to be doing it for one charity, but he couldn't, so he had to do it for another charity. It's all, I think, either cerebral palsy or maybe it's related to mental health, but I will definitely clarify it and give the right information. So I would buy this and stitch it even if it wasn't for charity, but especially for charity. And look at how gorgeous that is. I mean, this needs to be monochromatic. It needs to be. And if you're doing it and you're not doing it monochromatic, no problem. Well, in fact, mine is monochromatic technically, but I'm doing it with a variegated floss. So I had it for a couple of weeks before I started it. And then I started it about 2 weeks ago, and look how far I've gotten. Can you believe that? I am flying through this thing. I love it. Now, what am I doing it on? First of all, the linen is 32 count. Picture this plus, earthen. All right. So it's this gorgeous browny pinky color. I don't know how well it's showing up on screen. It looks more brown than in real life, where it's a little bit pinkier in real life. Gorgeous, gorgeous linen. I mean, it's picture this plus, right? It's going to be beautiful. The modeling is perfection. The silk that I chose this when I was out at Cross Stitch and Crafts, is the Karen Collection Water Lilies in the plum colorway. So it's this amazing silk, and it's got dark teals, purples, and navies in it. And this is no, it's not my first time doing a monochromatic. My Valcomen from last year was a monochromatic. This was my first time doing it in silk, monochromatic with the sewing method. Okay, so that's why this is going so fast. So, the sewing method. I think in a couple of episodes ago, I was kind of railing against stitching in hand and how much I didn't like it. And I realized, because when I was stitching in hand accidentally, when I had COVID brain, I was still doing the jabbing back and forth between the fabric, doing one leg of the X at a time. This one, I started stitching in hand using the sewing method, where I rarely go to the back. And because of the rather low number count, 32, I can do it. I don't think I could really enjoy stitching in hand above that. I mean, I've done a little bit with a 40 count. I think I prefer a 40 count in a Q-snap or a hoop. But this is the perfect size or count linen to stitch in hand using the sewing method, in my opinion. Now, I'm doing it 1/2, so again, it's a kind of a thin coverage, but this fabric is so stunningly beautiful, and it matches so perfectly what's happening with the different colors of the silk that it's just the perfect combination. And what's funny is I'd actually purchased other fabric that day for this project, but I had this in my stash, this earthen in my stash. And so when I got home and I kind of just laid the floss on top of this, I was like, oh no, this is it. Anyways, at this rate, if I keep this up, I could be done for sure this year. Oh, I love it. If you have it, stitch it. You'll love it. All right. Another start. There's not much to show on this one, even though I've actually put in quite a few stitches. It doesn't look like much yet, but I started this one a couple of weeks ago. It's Rosewood Manor's Inspiration. I saw this, I think it was Ellen Reed from the Maximum Power Hour stitcher. She's the woman who was in the Cross Stitch Dummies, which was like basically the soundtrack to my college years, my university years. She grew up in the town near to me. The Crash Test Dummies were like huge in my coming of age. So when I found out she was a cross stitcher, I started binge watching her Flosstube, and then she finished this one, and it is like a magnificent work of art finished. So I ordered it, and I ended up starting it during a Zoom stitch with Fox and Rabbit, Karen and Brendan from Fox and Rabbit. I snagged one of the spots for one of their stitch-alongs. So I decided to start it to sort of commemorate that. And it was my first stitchy Zoom. And I realized I really need to find my people here in Knoxville. So I need to, if you're in Knoxville and you're a cross stitcher and you want to form a group, please let me know, because I'm definitely feeling that need. I've got knitter friends that I get together with over at Loopville, but I need some stitchy friends as well. You know, I need to reach out to the Proper Stitcher. I think she's here in Knoxville. Anyhow, I'm doing it, and I am doing it on 32 count buttercream, vintage buttercream. No, vintage buttercream by Lakeside Linens. Yeah, the creme de la creme, let me tell you. It's the perfect match. And that's all I've done so far, but that's 2 hours worth of stitching. Funny enough. I'm dropping my silks. So, a couple of things about this one. It's a huge, huge beast. And it's designed by Karen Kluba. So, it's something like, I don't know, 230 by 290 stitches. So it's pretty big. And you see the green vines that run all the way through everywhere? That's all backstitch. I thought maybe it was just tiny X's, but that's all backstitch. There's just a lot of stitching that's going to go into this. That's okay. That's what we're here to do, right? So I was kind of humming and hawing about whether or not I was going to do it with the called for DMCs. It lists DMC and anchor. Or if I was going to do a silk conversion because I'm of two minds when it comes to silks. First of all, they're very expensive compared to DMC. So it can cost a lot of money. This has probably about 40 colors. Yeah, maybe 30, 35 or 40 colors. At $5 a skein, and that's just starting, that's a lot, right? But then again, this is a long haul. Like, I'm not in any rush to finish this. And I really want to enjoy stitching like this. You know, just quick little, like a flea market flower. I'm fine with doing it with DMC. But something like this that's going to probably take a long, long time, and it's going to be framed and hanging like a masterpiece. I want to enjoy every minute of my stitch. And it's not that I don't enjoy DMC. DMC is fine. I love it. But I love silks more. So I decided to take the plunge, and I'm doing a DMC to silk soie d'Alger or NPS, needlepoint silk conversion. Now, there are plenty of charts online that do it for you, but I found that when I was at Cross Stitch and Crafts, if I was following somebody else's conversion, when I saw it in real life, I wouldn't have picked that. So I started painstakingly doing it by myself, or for myself, sorry, because in this particular store, all of the silks are on pegboards next to each other. So I could stand in front of one wall and take the DMC that it called for and hunt down what a reasonably accurate silk would be. So I started with the greens and the browns. Some of them are soie d'Alger. Most of them, I find, the best conversion has been needlepoint silk, but then also a couple of soie d'Alger. So very slowly I'm going to do it, so that even though, yes, in the long run it'll still cost me just the same, it won't feel quite so bad if I've only spent $25 on silks for 5 colors rather than, you know, $100 or $150. I'm not very good with math, so that's probably completely wrong. Anyway, to make a long story short, I decided, yes, I am going to, for projects like this, I'm going to do the silk conversion. So that's all I got started on, but that was good because the Zoom meeting was so fun, and there were so many interesting women and a couple of men. Of course, Brendan was there, and then Robert Harris, is that his name? He's like a really famous model stitcher. He's like the last guy you'd ever think would be a stitcher. Like you'd expect him to be like in a biker gang or something, but he was really, really nice, and he came and didn't stay for very long, but you know, we went for 2.5 hours, and it was just so much fun. And so this kind of like easy, straightforward stitching was perfect for that. But what I'm going to do is probably save this project for that meeting, that monthly meeting, because they have 2 Zoom meetings, one for Thursday Dawes, which I'm not doing, and then just an open one for any pattern. Although maybe I should be stitching one of their patterns, or at least something on their fabric. Tell me what you think about the etiquette for that. Should I be using a fox and rabbit? I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't care because they're the nicest people on the planet. But I wonder if maybe, you tell me what you would do. If you would go with like, am I being too Canadian about this? Tell me. You know, anyway, love it. Buttercream, 32 count, delightful, creme de la creme linen. I'm not even close to being done, you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm already 40 minutes in, and then I'll have to clean all this up after. All right. The next one I'm going to show you is one that I started the 1st of June, another project bag that I made. This one, it doesn't matter if the fabric's upside down. And that is, I joined the Witchy Stitcher Supernatural Sal. So, sorry, this is just a black and white kind of ratty folded up one. But this is the sister Sal to the Cryptid, one from last year. I didn't do that one, but I'm doing the Supernatural. And I almost finished the border, which she released at the beginning of June. And now that we're into July, the first Supernatural creature has been released. I'll post it here. It's a siren. I haven't started working on that yet, but I think I might today. And that is how I almost finished well, I shouldn't say almost finished, but this border goes quickly, very, very quickly. So this is 32 count, the called for linen, 32 count Old Salem, which is tea and coffee dyed from Primitive Hair. It smells delicious. Smells like coffee and tea. So I did the full, like, everything is called for. The linen is called for. I'm doing it with the called for DMCs, a lot of 310, the blacks. I'm doing all the called for DMC. It's a really fun looking color palette. It's a little bit of a tangled mess right now, but there it is. And yes, so the first creature has been released. They're small and they're going to be released one a week. So I need to get on it. I'm going to quickly get it done today, hopefully. Sit down and just stitch it while, hanging out with my kids, watching TV or whatever. And yeah, I love the Witchy Stitcher. She's got a fantastic aesthetic. And even though, like, it's kind of Halloween-y, but it's not. I mean, it's going to take us well into November. And I think this one I'm going to be giving to my son. I am working on a full coverage for my daughter that has been languishing. I think this one will be for my son. He's a real ghoul. Like, anything creepy and scary is right up his alley. I wonder where he gets it from. Okay, another one. Oh, this pattern, again, I made the project bag. This is a drastic improvement. This is the latest one I made. Look at my mitered corners. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, I'm getting better. I'm so excited. Anyways, this is, who knows? Maybe I'll start to sell them. But I like to just sew. And I like to sew for me and my daughter. So this is the latest project bag I made, and it's the best one by far. It's this beautiful bee fabric, nice, good quality. I'm very pleased with it. Now this one, I'm sure many of you have seen it. It was a new release this year by Brenda Gervais of With Thy Needle and Thread, Rejoice Evermore. Isn't that gorgeous? Love it. Now I am looking down at my linen, trying to remember what I'm doing it on. Is this the Chantilly cream? I don't remember. It's not the called for linen. I'm gonna have to check. Everything is stored in my phone in the Cross Stitch Plus app. I'll have to check it. I think it's the Chantilly cream by Lakeside Linen. Oh man. Anyway, and I'm using the called for flosses, which is Weeks Dye Works, a few Gentle Arts, and Classic Colorworks. Classic Colorworks, Weeks Dye Works, and the Gentle Art. Kind of all crammed onto one little thing. I love over-dyed cotton. It's really so fun to stitch with. I really, really like it. It's not quite as good as silk, but for something like this, you gotta go with what they're calling for. I mean, look at those birds. Look at the windows in the house. The curtains. I think that's what got me. Again, sorry if it's not coming in. Yeah, I really, really like this one. I started it a couple weeks ago. I haven't gotten very far. But it is what it is. This looks like a 40 count. I'll have to double check and correct myself. I need to take better notes. Everything's stored on my phone and I'm using my phone to record, so I can't get to it. I just can't wait to get to the birds in the house. All right. Now, one more new start to show you. And that is Teresa Koget's Strawberry Manor Stitch Along. And if you're wondering, well, what's that? Well, you have to be a Patreon to get it. I've also joined a couple of Patreons. I've joined Fox and Rabbit, patron, and Teresa Koget. And I'm on a huge Teresa Koget kick right now. So this is the Strawberry Manor Sal. She's releasing a little bit each month, and it'll take about 8 months. And this is what I have so far, and I'll put up a picture of it here. And it's really cute, and this is what I have so far. I'm stitching this on 40 count vintage country mocha by Zweigart. And I have way more than I need. I have a half yard, so I'm going to need to cut it down. But yeah, it's beautiful. And what I've decided to do is, instead of using the called for DMC, I'm just substituting silks. The nice thing about a lot of these samplers is they take the same types of colors, and I'm finding that between my new NPS and my Soie d'Alger, I just steal them from other projects, and I'm able to do it. Because I mean, I want to stitch as much as I can with silk. I have tons left over, and the colors I have match what she's called for. So I'm using them. Very, very pretty. Look at those sheep. They're so cute. I love those sheep. Love it. Okay, so speaking of Teresa Koget, well, I'll talk about, that's all for my new starts. So I think that's, that's a lot for me. I have 2 more that I cannot wait to start, but I'm waiting on linen and trying to decide which linen. So the other Teresa Koget that I've caved and bought was Let Love Rain. We've all seen this one. Those blues and browns just get me every time. But everything in this, there's 3 patterns in this book, and I want to stitch all 3, not just the huge sampler. But this pillow, You'll Never Know, Dear, How Much I Love You, is something that I think I'm going to stitch this month. Yeah, I'm going to definitely do that one first, which is the If You Want to Change the World, Go Home and Love Your Family. I think that's what everybody should do, right? I think that message is so on point, especially nowadays. Things are pretty scary right now, especially in the US. So this is like what we all need to be doing regardless. And even though we all do it, we need to do it intentionally and deliberately. Says the woman who is home all the time, loving on her family, but ignoring them so I can stitch. Anyways, to be lighthearted, I'm going to do all 3 in that book, because it's a pretty amazing book. And then I also picked up, not a Teresa Koget, but another Rosewood Manor, A Tisket, A Tasket. Both of these, if they look a little funny and a little warped, it's because the day they came in from the mail, I think I got them through 1, 2, 3 stitch. The day they came in the mail, yes? Can I eat? Help yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh. Wait, Mom, does that mean I can have an ice cream sandwich?
No ice cream sandwich.
Fine.
The day these came in the mail, I was so excited. They came in along with, I think, Inspiration. So I just felt like a rock star. I had like these 3 books, and I was like, yes. And I had kitted up Inspiration because I knew I was going to be doing that with that linen. These 2 I left out on my coffee table, and my daughter spilled her water all over them. I was so angry at myself, right? Not at her, because spills happen all the time. But that I had left them out. But fortunately, after they dried, they were fine. They're just warpy. you know what it's like. But when they're wet, you think that's it, they're destroyed, and I just spent all this money on these beautiful patterns. Anyway, at Tisket a Tasket, these are all new from market this year. This one to me is just so beautiful, and I'm waiting on ordering. Excuse me. I want to do this on the called for Picture This Plus, which is vellum linen. It calls for 28 count. I'll probably do it on something higher. And I've started collecting the floss. It's a big chunk of change when you kit things up, right? And I'm on a budget. I have to keep myself on a cross-stitch crafting budget, and I have to wait to order everything I need for the linen and everything till August, because I've already used up my budget. And this is all self-imposed. I'm not one of these people who asks her husband, I make my own money, all that kind of stuff. And I use my own money for this kind of stuff. But I have to get really strict because I will justify blowing my budget every month. So I've already used up June and July's budget on cross stitch, so I'm waiting till August, and then I'll finish kitting it up with the linen and get started. These projects, I think I'll just use, I'm not as worried about the linens that I use, or I could just dye up what I want. This one, I want the exact linen it calls for, because I've been doing a floss toss with some of the colors that I've already gotten, and it doesn't have very many, but they're very like specific blues, putting them on different items in my stash, and it'll be pretty, but I want this when I'm done. I want this. So August, I'll get the linen and finish getting the rest of the floss and then start it. All right. So, okay. So my very last thing I want to talk about. Okay, I'm at an hour. This has got to be a record for me. Okay, so Christmas in July, jolly July. I'm not a huge Christmas cross stitcher. Even in my previous incarnation as a stitcher, I didn't do a lot of Christmas. I might do the ones from Teresa Kogut, because everything themed this month coming from her Patreon is Christmas in July. So my plans for July are to continue working on my Blackbird Designs Christmas garden, which has been languishing since March. I haven't really worked on it since March. Love this one. I am doing it on another project bag that I made that looks exactly like the other one because I had this fabric. I'm doing it on 32 point Legacy by Picture This Plus with the called for linens, which is mostly Classic Colorworks or Gentle Art. I don't think I've made any progress on this since the last time we showed. So this one is going to be worked on for July. And my start for Christmas in July, there's the threads. My start for Christmas in July is from the same book. It's 'Tis the Season. This one here. And I'm doing it on everything that's called for. So the called for fabric is Pear by Picture This Plus. And I happen to have it in my stash. And let's see, what's the count? My apologies. 32 count Pear by Lakeside Linens. Sorry, did I say Picture This Plus? I meant Lakeside Linens. And I have the teeny weeniest little start right there. So So not much going yet. And I'm doing it on a silk conversion. Everything she calls for, she gives the DMC, but what she calls for is Belle Soie. Now, Belle Soie is the over-dyed silk by Classic Colorworks, as we all know. If you, well, I didn't know. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. I didn't know that until I saw that. So, and these are $8 a skein. So I decided I would do conversion to silks I already had, stealing them from other projects, because the greens, the reds, and the whites and creams I've got from the Tudor Bee and other ones. But I did break down and get the poison apple in the Belle Soie for the bird. Right, look at that bird. It needs, like, I want to make sure my bird looks like that bird. So the bird, I'm definitely using the called for over-dyed silk, but everything else I'm gonna use other, like needlepoint or soie d'Alger, just because, like, that's, come on you guys, it's a lot of money. I hope I don't sound like a, I don't know, tightwad, but like, you know, I got mouths to feed, I've got like shoes to buy, and for my children, and gymnastics to pay for, and now my son's in fencing. So these things, you know, we have to watch our pennies, right? So those are going to be my 2 Christmas and July projects. I don't think I'll start anything else. Maybe one of the Teresa Kogut's, we'll see. And for this one, I will do the French, 'Tis the Season. The C'est la saison pour être joyeux. I'll do the French instead of the English. My dad was French. His family was from Brittany. So I used to be fluent, but not so much anymore. All right. I think I'm finally done. I don't know why I worry about this. Like, some people put up like 2-hour videos, but that's all I have to show you. And thank you. If you're still watching, thank you. And if you're not, well, I don't know. So please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and happy stitching and happy Jolly July. Take care.